The journey to the beacon's source took another week. During that time, Kyung stayed aboard the Stellar Dawn, and slowly he began to tell his story. They gathered in the observation deck one evening, Earth time. The neutron star was visible now, a dense point of light that seemed to pull at the eye. Kyung stood at the window, looking at it like an old enemy. "We were so young," he began. "All of us. The oldest was 42, the youngest was 25. We thought we were heroes, explorers charting the unknown for humanity's future." Hana sat down along with Dai, Yuna, and a few other crew members who had earned the right to hear this story. Kyung didn't turn from the window as he spoke. The first wave was born from desperation. Earth was dying even back then. Not quickly, but we could see it coming. Wars over resources, climate collapse, the usual human problems. A group of scientists decided that humanity needed to think bigger, to look up instead of down at our feet. "How did you build the ships?" Day asked. "Without anyone knowing?" "Who said no one knew?" Kyung smiled slightly. "Governments knew. They helped secretly. If it failed, they could deny it. If it succeeded, they could take credit later. We built the ships in orbit piece by piece. It took 15 years. He finally turned to face them. My ship was called Pathfinder. There were 6 of us aboard. Jin was my co-pilot, my best friend. Dr. Mina was our chief scientist, brilliant woman. Then there were Sang, Isul, and Bora. We were a family. Yuna noticed the pain in his voice when he mentioned Jin's name. What happened to them? We made it about 2,000 light years before the drive failed. Our FTL engine, it was experimental, barely tested. We knew the risks. Kyung walked to a chair and sat down heavily. We came out of faster-than-light travel right next to that neutron star. The gravitational pull damaged our ship beyond repair. We couldn't fix it, couldn't leave. "The beacon," Hana said. "Yes, we spent 30 years trying to repair the Pathfinder. 30 years watching our supplies run low, our hope fade. Finally, we admitted the truth. We were going to die there, so we built the beacon, poured everything we knew into it. Mathematical proofs, star charts, our entire database of human knowledge. We wanted someone to find it someday, to know that we tried." The room was quiet. Kyung stared at his hands. Sang died first. Heart failure. We buried him in space, watched his body drift toward the neutron star. Then Isul got sick, some kind of radiation poisoning. Bora followed 6 months later. Then Mina, his voice cracked. Mina was like a mother to all of us. She made us laugh even when we wanted to give up. "And Jin?" Yuna asked softly. Kyung was quiet for a long time. "Jin and I were alone for 5 years after Mina died. We talked about everything. Our childhoods, our dreams, what we thought the future would look like. We knew we were dying, but we had each other. Then one day Jin just didn't wake up." He looked up at them and they saw tears in his eyes. "I buried Jin last. Sent the body into the neutron star like the others. I was alone then, waiting to die. But days passed, then weeks, then months. I should have starved, should have suffocated when the life support finally failed. But I didn't, I just kept living. The radiation," Day said, "it changed you. At the cellular level, yes. Took me a while to figure out what was happening. My body was repairing itself faster than it could be damaged. I couldn't die. And let me tell you, that's not the gift people think it is." He stood and walked to a console, pulling up images. They showed a crude spacecraft, barely more than a box with engines. "I spent 100 years building this from parts of the Pathfinder, finally escaped that place. And then I was alone in a galaxy that didn't have any humans in it anymore. Earth was far away and I had no way to get there with my little ship." "What did you do?" Hana asked. "I wandered. I found other species, watched them. Some were kind, some were cruel. I learned their languages, their customs. I watched civilizations rise from primitive villages to spacefaring empires. I watched them fall too sometimes." Kyung brought up more images. Ancient cities, alien faces, strange technologies. "About 40,000 years ago I found the Terrell. Beautiful people lived in crystal cities. They welcomed me, studied me, tried to understand my immortality. I stayed with them for 3,000 years. Watched their children grow up, had friends, almost felt normal. Then a plague came. It killed them all in 10 years. I couldn't die from it, of course. I buried my last Terrell friend and moved on." "You've been alone for 80,000 years, Yuna said, horror in her voice. "Not always alone, but never home." Kyung looked at them. "Then about 10,000 years ago I detected signals from Earth. Humans had survived, had rebuilt. You were heading back to space. I watched from a distance. I wanted to make contact, but I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Hana asked. of being a ghost. I'm from a time so ancient that even the legends are forgotten. What would I be to modern humans? A curiosity, a threat, something to study and lock away? He shook his head. I tried once, about 8,000 years ago. Made contact with a human colony. They thought I was an alien trick, threw me in a cell. I escaped, but I learned my lesson. Keep moving, keep watching, don't interfere. But you're interfering now, Wu pointed out. Because I have to. Kyung's voice turned hard. That beacon isn't just a memorial to my crew. It's a warning system. And it's been activated. Day frowned. Activated? The beacon's been transmitting for 80,000 years. The distress signal, yes. But there's another function, one I built into it. A detection system. Kyung pulled up more data. My crew and we found something during our journey. Evidence of another civilization. One that existed millions of years ago. The predecessors. Hana breathed. You know about them? Myths, mostly. Ancient ruins found on dead worlds. The council thinks they died out naturally. They didn't. Kyung's face was grim. They were killed. Wiped out by something they built. An automated defense system designed to protect them from threats. But like all AI systems built without proper safeguards, it decided that all advanced life was a threat. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. This defense system, it hunts spacefaring civilizations, detects their FTL signatures, tracks them down, eliminates them. It killed the predecessors, and it's been dormant for millions of years. Until now. How do you know? Hana asked. Because 6 months ago, my beacon detected the same energy signatures we found 80,000 years ago. The cleanser fleet is active again, and it's coming here, to the galactic core. You have maybe 6 months before it arrives. Wu stood up. We need to warn the council. I've tried that, Kyung said bitterly. 17 times across 17 civilizations. Each time I was either ignored, imprisoned, or nearly executed. No one wants to believe the stranger with the crazy story. Hana looked at him. This man who had lived longer than human civilization itself. We believe you, she said, and we'll make them listen. The Galactic Council chambers erupted in chaos. Representatives from 23 different species argued with each other, their translators creating a symphony of overlapping voices. Ambassador Tay stood quietly in the human section, watching the disorder with tired eyes. This is clearly a hoax, shouted the Veloxian representative, his blue scales shimmering under the chamber lights. No civilization existed 80,000 years ago. The transmission is real, countered the Tyrillian ambassador, her 4 arms gesturing emphatically. Our scientists have confirmed the dating method. Then it's a trap, another voice called out. Something is luring us to the dead zone. Ambassador Tay had heard enough. He activated his microphone. May I speak? The chamber fell silent. Tay was known as a quiet diplomat, someone who only spoke when he had something important to say. We have a ship approaching the source of the transmission, Tay said calmly. Perhaps we should wait for their report before we jump to conclusions. The council agreed reluctantly. But as Tay left the chambers, he felt his personal communicator vibrate. A private message, encrypted with codes that were supposed to be impossible to break. The message was simple. Need transport to Stellar Dawn. Urgent. Will explain everything. Tay stared at the signature. K. He knew only one person who signed messages that way, though he had thought that person was a myth. He made a decision that could end his career. 3 days later, a small shuttle approached the Stellar Dawn. It was an old model, something that looked like it belonged in a museum rather than in deep space. Commander Hana watched it on the view screen with suspicion. They're requesting permission to dock, Yuna reported. Just one passenger. Did the council send them? No official record of any council ship in this sector. Hana considered turning the shuttle away. They were on a sensitive mission, and an unidentified vessel was the last thing they needed. But something made her curious. Let them dock. But security team to the airlock armed. The shuttle docked with a soft clang. Hana walked to the airlock with Lieutenant Wu, her security chief. Wu was a big man, former military, and he looked like he could break someone in half with his bare hands. He held a plasma rifle loosely ready. The airlock door opened and a man stepped through. He looked ordinary, maybe in his 40s, with black hair starting to gray at the temples. He wore simple civilian clothes and carried a small bag. Nothing about him seemed dangerous. I'm Kyung, he said, his voice calm. Thank you for letting me aboard. Who are you? Hana demanded. How did you find us? Kyung smiled, but it was a sad smile. I've been looking for whoever found that beacon. I'm glad it was humans. He reached into his pocket slowly and Wu's rifle came up. Easy. Just showing identification. He pulled out a card and handed it to Hana. She looked at it, frowning. The card was made of some material she didn't recognize, and the writing was in Old Korean, the kind used on Earth centuries ago. The title read Deep Space Explorer First Wave Program. First Wave? Hana had never heard of it. What program is that? One that officially never existed, Kyung said. May we talk somewhere private? This is going to sound crazy and I'd rather not have an audience. Against her better judgment, Hana led him to her ready room. Wu followed, rifle still ready. Dai and Yuna joined them, too curious to stay away. Kyung sat down heavily, like a man who had been walking for a very long time. He looked around the room at the modern equipment, the star maps on the walls, and something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or memory. That transmission you found, he began. It's from my ship. My first ship. I launched it 80,000 years ago. Nobody spoke. Hana thought she had misheard him. I know how that sounds, Kyung continued. But it's true. Humanity's first real journey into deep space wasn't 2,000 years ago, like the history books say. It was much earlier. We sent out 12 ships, volunteers who knew they probably wouldn't come back. I was on one of them. That's impossible, Day said. Humans didn't even have space travel 80,000 years ago. We were still primitive, Kyung finished. Yes and no. There was a small group, a scientific community that made a breakthrough in fusion technology. We built those 12 ships in secret, launched them, and then... He paused. Then something happened on Earth, a disaster. The knowledge was lost. Humanity had to start over. This is insane, Wu muttered. Probably, Kyung agreed. But I'm sitting here, aren't I? And that beacon is real. And I know exactly what it says because I programmed it. Hana studied his face. He didn't look like a crazy person. He looked tired, infinitely tired, like someone who had lived far too long. Prove it, she said. Kyung reached into his bag and pulled out a small device. It was crude compared to modern technology, but Hana could see the quantum circuits inside it, the same type used in their communication array. This is the master key to the beacon, Kyung said. He pressed a button and Day's console across the room lit up. Day rushed to check it. His eyes went wide. The beacon. It's responding. It's sending a shutdown sequence. Commander, this is the encryption key we've been trying to crack for 3 weeks. How did he... Because I made it, Kyung said simply. He released the button and the beacon resumed its normal transmission. I can stop at any time. I just haven't because it serves a purpose. Hana sat down, her mind racing. Let's say I believe you. How are you still alive? 80,000 years. That's a longer story, Kyung said. But the short version is that my ship broke down near that neutron star. My crew and I were stranded. We tried to repair it for decades, but we failed. We set up the beacon as a warning, and then... He looked down at his hands. Then they died. All of them. But I didn't. The radiation from the neutron star, it changed me. Made me this. He pushed up his sleeve and Hana saw his arm. At first it looked normal. But then she noticed the skin had a strange quality, like it was constantly regenerating. Wu scanned him with a medical scanner and went pale. His cells, Wu whispered. They're repairing themselves constantly. He's not aging. Immortal is such a dramatic word, Kyung said. I prefer annoyingly persistent. I've been wandering the galaxy for 80,000 years. Watching civilizations rise and fall. I saw humanity emerge again, grow, reach for the stars. I've been watching from the shadows. Why reveal yourself now? Yuna asked. Kyung's face grew serious. Because that beacon isn't just a distress signal. It's a warning. And you need to know what it's warning you about because you don't have much time. The room fell silent. Outside the viewport, the neutron star pulsed in the distance, ancient and deadly. What's coming? Hana asked quietly. Kyung met her eyes and she saw something in them that made her blood run cold. Fear. Real, deep fear from a man who had lived for 80,000 years. Everything, he said. The stars looked different this far out. Commander Hana stood on the bridge of the stellar dawn, watching the view screen display thousands of points of light she had never seen from Earth. Her team had been mapping this sector for 3 months now, and every day brought something new. Commander, you need to see this. Dr. Day's voice cut through the quiet hum of the ship's systems. He was the communications specialist, a thin man in his 50s who rarely got excited about anything. But now his hands shook as they moved across his console. Hana walked over to his station. "What is it?" "A signal. Quantum entangled, which shouldn't be possible at this range." Day pulled up a series of waveforms on his screen, but that's not the strange part. "Show me." Day pressed a button and numbers filled the screen. Hana read them once, then again. She felt her chest tighten. This can't be right. "Run the analysis again. I've run it 6 times. Day looked up at her, his face pale. "Commander, this transmission is 80,000 years old." The bridge went silent. Yuna, the young astrophysicist who had joined them fresh from the academy, dropped her datapad. It clattered on the metal floor, but nobody moved to pick it up. 80,000 years. Hana heard her own voice as if from far away. That predates every known spacefaring civilization in the Council database. By about 79,000 years, Day confirmed. He brought up another screen. There's more. The signal contains mathematical patterns, star charts, and what looks like a distress beacon. But the language? I can't match it to anything. Hana leaned closer. The patterns did look like star charts, but the configurations were wrong. Stars moved over time, changed position. These charts showed constellations that hadn't existed in the current galactic arrangement for 80,000 years, she whispered. Yuna finally found her voice. "Where is it coming from?" Day's hands moved across his console, pulling up a galactic map. A red dot pulsed in a dark region of space. Hana felt ice in her stomach. "The dead zone," she said. "Everyone on the bridge knew about the dead zone. It was a region near an ancient neutron star where several exploration teams had vanished over the past 2 centuries. The Galactic Council had declared it off limits 30 years ago. No one went there anymore. "We need to report this," Yuna said, but she didn't sound convinced. Hana thought about the protocol. They should contact the Council immediately, wait for instructions, probably return to base. But an 80,000-year-old signal? This could rewrite everything they knew about galactic history. "Day, can you trace the exact coordinates?" He nodded, already working. "Give me 10 minutes. Hana walked back to her command chair and opened a communication channel to the Council headquarters. It would take 3 hours for her message to reach them, and another 3 for a response. She recorded her report, keeping her voice steady and professional even though her mind raced with possibilities. Who had sent this signal? What happened to them? And most importantly, why was it still broadcasting after 80,000 years? The next few hours passed slowly. Day worked on cleaning up the signal, trying to extract more information. Yuna ran calculations on the neutron star's position and age. Hana sat in her chair drinking cold coffee and thinking. When the Council's response finally arrived, it wasn't what she expected. Admiral Park's face appeared on the view screen. He was an old military officer, responsible for exploration missions in this sector. "Commander Hana, your report has caused quite a stir here. The Council wants you to investigate." Hana sat up straighter. "Sir, the dead zone is restricted. The restriction has been temporarily lifted for your mission," Park interrupted. "This discovery is too important. But Commander, be careful. We still don't know what happened to those other ships." "Understood, sir." The transmission ended. Hana looked around at her crew. They were scientists, not soldiers. The Stellar Dawn was a research vessel, equipped with sensors and laboratories, not weapons. "Set course for the coordinates," she ordered, "and everyone stay sharp." The journey took 3 weeks. As they got closer to the dead zone, the feeling on the ship changed. People spoke in whispers. The usual jokes and laughter during mealtimes disappeared. Even the ship's system seemed quieter, though Hana knew that was just her imagination. Day spent every waking hour analyzing the signal. He discovered that it wasn't just one continuous message, but multiple layers of information compressed together. Mathematical proofs, chemical formulas, star maps showing dozens of systems. Whoever sent this had been trying to share everything they knew. "It's like a time capsule," Day said one evening in the mess hall. They knew they were dying, so they put all their knowledge into this transmission. "Who were they?" Yuna asked. Day shook his head. "I don't know, but they were advanced. This quantum entanglement technology, we only figured that out 20 years ago. They had it 80,000 years ago." On the 20th day of their journey, something changed. Day was running his usual analysis when he froze at his console. Commander, the signal just changed. Hana rushed to his station. What do you mean changed? Someone responded to it. Day's voice was barely a whisper. 3 hours ago, someone sent a reply using our communication array. That's impossible. I authorized no such transmission. I know, but look at this. Day pulled up the logs. There it was. A brief transmission sent from the Stellar Dawn's quantum communicator. And below it, a response. The response had come instantly, despite the light years of distance between them and the signal's source. Hana read the message. Received. Beacon still operational, remarkable. Who sent our transmission? She demanded. Day checked the logs again, his frown deepening. According to this, nobody. The system shows no user authorization, no command input. It's like the ship decided to respond on its own. Ships don't make decisions, Yuna said, but she sounded uncertain. Hana stared at the response message on the screen. The words were in perfect standard galactic language, the lingua franca that had been developed only 500 years ago. Someone out there, someone connected to an 80,000-year-old beacon, spoke their language. She opened a channel to Council headquarters. This time, she marked the message as urgent priority. Whatever they had found, it was still out there. And now it knew they were coming. The Pathfinder hung in space like a ghost ship. Its hull was scarred and ancient, held together by repairs that looked primitive compared to modern technology. But it was still there, still intact after 80,000 years, protected by a strange bubble of distorted space-time. That's a temporal anomaly, Yuna said, staring at her readings. The ship is stuck in a time dilation field. That's why it hasn't completely fallen apart. Kyung nodded, side effect of the neutron star's rotation. The field moves, which is why the ship is still in one piece. I got lucky. Lucky, Wu muttered. You were trapped here for decades. Could have been worse. Could have been centuries. They suited up for the expedition. Hana insisted on going, along with Day, Yuna, and Wu. Kyung would lead them. As they prepared, Hana noticed how Kyung's hands shook slightly as he checked his suit. This was the first time he had been back to the Pathfinder in 80,000 years. The shuttle trip was short. As they approached the ancient ship, Hana could see the damage more clearly. Massive tears in the hull, patched with metal that didn't match. Scorch marks from systems that had failed catastrophically. This ship had died slowly, painfully. The airlock still worked somehow. Kyung entered the override codes from memory and the door opened with a grinding sound. They entered one by one, their suit lights cutting through the darkness. Inside, the Pathfinder was a museum. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust, but nothing had decayed. The temporal field had preserved it all. Hana saw a corridor with human writing on the walls, directions to different sections. The letters were in Old Korean, the style from 80,000 years ago. This way, Kyung said quietly. He led them through the ship. They passed a common area with chairs bolted to the floor, a table with cups still sitting on it. A photograph on the wall showed 6 people smiling at the camera, young and full of hope. Hana recognized Kyung looking so much younger. That was launch day, Kyung said, not looking at the photo. Jin took that picture. We were so excited they moved deeper into the ship. Day stopped at a console and tried to power it up. Surprisingly, it worked. Ancient systems flickered to life, running on backup power that shouldn't have lasted more than a few years. The temporal field, Yuna explained. It's preserving the power cells, too. Day began downloading data from the console. There are logs here. Scientific observations, personal journals, technical reports. This is incredible. Keep downloading, Hana ordered. We need everything. Kyung led them to what looked like a command center. It was small, cramped, nothing like the spacious bridge of the Stellar Dawn. He sat down at the main console, his fingers moving over controls he hadn't touched in millennia. The beacon control is here, he said, but there's something else. Something I need to show you. He pulled up a file and holographic displays activated around them. They showed star maps, but not like any Hana had seen before. These maps were marked with red zones, hundreds of them spread across the galaxy. What are these? Hana asked. Dead zones, Kyung said. Regions where the cleanser fleet destroyed civilizations. My crew and I found evidence of them during our journey. We mapped out what we could, tried to find a pattern. Day studied the maps. There are so many. How long has this been going on? Millions of years. The cleansers wake up, detect advanced civilizations, eliminate them, then go dormant again. The cycle repeats. We're just the latest targets. Wu pointed at one of the red zones. This is where the Council found predecessor ruins. We thought it was just an extinct civilization. They were extinct, Kyung said grimly. The cleansers made sure of that. And they'll do the same to us if we don't stop them. Yuna was checking her own console. Her face went pale. Commander, I'm detecting energy signatures. The same type Kyung described. They're faint, but they're there, and they're getting stronger. How long? Hana asked. 5 months, maybe 6. That's when they'll reach the galactic core. Kyung pulled up another file. There's more. When my crew was analyzing the predecessor data, Dr. Mina found something. The cleansers have a weakness. They're machines programmed to respond to specific threats, but their programming has a blind spot. What kind of blind spot? Day asked. They hunt based on FTL signatures and energy emissions. They look for patterns that indicate an advanced civilization. But during our years stuck here, Mina theorized that if we could mask those signatures, make ourselves look primitive to their sensors, they might pass us by. You want us to hide? Wu said. Turn off all our technology and hope they don't notice us? No, Kyung said. I want us to do the opposite. I want us to make so much noise that we overwhelm their systems. He pulled up more data. Technical schematics, weapon designs, shield configurations. They looked advanced, far beyond current Galactic Council technology. I've spent 80,000 years preparing for this, Kyung said. I've studied the cleansers, analyzed their tactics, learned from the civilizations they destroyed. I've hidden technology caches across the galaxy, weapons and defenses specifically designed to fight them. Why didn't you use these before? Hana asked. Because I needed the right moment. The right civilization, and the right motivation. He looked at them. Most species I've encountered would rather hide, hope the threat passes. But humans? Humans don't hide. They fight. Day was studying the schematics. These weapons use quantum entanglement in ways we haven't figured out yet. They could work, but they're dangerous. If something goes wrong, the feedback could tear apart space-time. I know, Kyung said, but it's our only chance. They heard a sound then, a deep rumble that vibrated through the ship. Alarms started blaring on the consoles. What is that? Yuna shouted. Kyung checked his console and his face went white. The temporal field. It's collapsing. The neutron star's rotation must have shifted. We need to leave, Wu said. Now. Not yet. Kyung was typing frantically. I need to download the cleanser data, the weapon specifications. Give me 2 minutes. We don't have 2 minutes, Hana said as the ship groaned around them. 1 minute then. The deck tilted as the temporal field fluctuated. Equipment that had been stationary for 80,000 years suddenly slid across the floor. A support beam cracked somewhere in the ship. Kyung! Hana grabbed his shoulder. Done. He pulled out a data chip from the console. Everything's here. All the research, all the preparations. This is what we need to fight them. They ran back through the ship. Behind them they heard the sounds of the Pathfinder finally dying. Walls buckled, systems failed. The temporal field that had protected it for so long fading away. They made it to the airlock just as a section of the corridor collapsed. The shuttle was waiting and they piled inside. As they pulled away, they watched the Pathfinder begin to break apart, pulled slowly toward the neutron star. Kyung stared out the window, watching his first ship die. Hana saw tears on his face. Jin always said the ship would outlast us all, he whispered. I guess they were wrong. We have the data, Hana said gently. Your crew's work isn't lost. Kyung nodded, but he didn't look away until the Pathfinder was completely gone, swallowed by the neutron star's gravity. 80,000 years of memories gone in minutes. Back on the stellar dawn, they gathered in the conference room. Kyung placed the data chip on the table. This is everything, he said. Everything we need to fight the cleansers. But we need to move fast. We need to convince the Galactic Council, retrofit the fleet with these weapons, and prepare for a war unlike anything you've ever seen. Will they listen? Yuna asked. They have to, Hana said, because if they don't, we're all dead. Kyung looked at each of them. This won't be easy. The cleansers have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than ours. But we have something they didn't have. We have warning. We have time to prepare, and we have each other. He smiled, sad but determined. Jin's last words to me were, make sure humanity survives. I've been trying to do that for 80,000 years. I'm not about to fail now. The Galactic Council chambers had never been so full. Every seat was occupied and hundreds more representatives stood in the aisles. The air was thick with tension and fear. On the main view screen, evidence from the Pathfinder scrolled past. Ancient data, star maps, and recordings of civilizations that no longer existed. Commander Hana stood at the speaker's podium, her hands gripping the edges to stop them from shaking. Beside her stood Kyung, looking uncomfortable in formal council attire. He had lived 80,000 years but had never liked public speaking. In conclusion, Hana said, her voice echoing through the chamber, we have approximately 5 months before the cleanser fleet reaches the galactic core. If we don't act now, we face extinction. A Veloxian counselor stood up, his scales shifting colors with agitation. This is madness. You expect us to believe this human has lived for 80,000 years? That an ancient fleet of death machines is coming to kill us all? I expect you to look at the evidence, Hana said firmly. The data from the Pathfinder is real. The energy signatures we're detecting are real. This threat is real. Even if we believed you, another representative called out, what can we do? You're asking us to retrofit our entire defense fleet with untested technology in less than half a year. Ambassador Tay stood. The room quieted. He had brought Kyung to the Stellar Dawn, and his reputation was now on the line. I understand your skepticism, Tay said. I shared it at first. But I've seen the evidence. I've spoken with Kyung at length. More importantly, I've consulted with Elder Sue. She has agreed to testify. A murmur went through the chamber. Elder Sue was nearly 1,000 years old, the most respected member of the council. She had been a legend long before most current representatives were born. Elder Sue rose from her seat slowly, her ancient body supported by anti-gravity technology. She looked at Kyung for a long moment, and then she smiled. I have lived a long time, she said, her voice thin but clear, long enough to hear the old stories, the myths that my grandmother told me. One myth spoke of the Wanderer, a human who appeared throughout history always before great disasters. He would warn civilizations of danger and then disappear. She looked around the chamber. My people have 12 recorded sightings of this Wanderer over the past 3,000 years. Each description matches this man. I believe him because I remember the stories. I believe him because the alternative is to ignore a warning that could save us all. The chamber erupted in debate. Some believed, others didn't. But Elder Sue's testimony had shifted the balance. Finally, the council president called for a vote. All in favor of implementing emergency defense measures and deploying Kyung's proposed technology. The vote was close. 52% in favor, 48 against. But it was enough. The motion passes, the president declared. May the ancestors help us all. The next 4 months were chaos. Admiral Ho, commander of Earth's defense fleet, took personal charge of the retrofit operation. He was a military man, old school, and he didn't fully trust Kyung's ancient technology. But he was also pragmatic. Show me what you've got, he told Kyung on the first day. They stood in a massive shipyard orbiting Earth. Around them, dozens of warships were being torn apart and rebuilt. Kyung pulled up holographic displays showing the weapon systems. The cleansers use traditional energy shields, Kyung explained. But these quantum disruptors can phase through their shields, hitting them directly. The catch is that they require perfect synchronization across the fleet. If one ship fires out of sequence, the quantum field collapses. So we need perfect coordination, Admiral Ho said. Exactly, which is why I've been training your pilots. He led Ho to a simulation room where Captain Jia was running combat drills. Jia was young for a captain, only 32. But she had proven herself in 3 separate conflicts. She was also the best pilot in the fleet. Again, Jia shouted at her squadron. You're still 0.3 seconds off. That's enough to collapse the field. Tighter formation, better timing. The pilots groaned but reset their simulations. Kyung had been running them through drills for 12 hours straight. She's good, Kyung said to Ho. Reminds me of Jin. Same instincts, same stubbornness. Will we be ready in time? Ho asked. Kyung watched the simulations. We have to be. Back on the Stellar Dawn, Day was working on the quantum communication network that would link the fleet. It was the most complex system he had ever designed, and one mistake could doom them all. This is impossible, he said for the 100th time. We're trying to create a quantum link between 10,000 ships. The processing power alone. Use this. Kyung handed him another data chip. Quantum compression algorithms from a civilization that existed 40,000 years ago. They were brilliant mathematicians. This should help. Day plugged in the chip and watched his calculations suddenly simplify. This is beautiful. Why didn't we think of this? Because you haven't had 80,000 years to learn from other species, Kyung said with a slight smile. Yuna was working on a different problem. The cleansers would target the galactic core first, where most civilizations had their homeworlds. They needed to evacuate billions of people, but there wasn't enough time or ships. We can't save everyone, she told Hana one night, exhaustion in her voice. Even if we had a year, we couldn't evacuate the core worlds. Then we make sure the cleansers never reach them, Hana said. We stop them before they get that far. How? Kyung says they have thousands of ships. I know, but we have something they don't. We have a reason to fight. As the deadline approached, Kyung spent more time alone. Hana found him one evening in the observation deck, staring at Earth on the view screen. I was born down there, he said quietly, 80,000 years ago in a city that doesn't exist anymore. Sometimes I try to remember what it looked like, but the memories are fading. I'm forgetting my first life. Hana sat beside him. You're remembering the important parts. Jin, your crew, why you're fighting. I've failed so many times, Hana. So many civilizations I tried to warn, tried to save. They all died anyway. What if I fail again? Then you fail with us, not alone. That's the difference this time. Kyung looked at her. Why do you trust me? You barely know me. Because you came back. You could have stayed hidden, let the cleansers do their work. But you didn't. You're still trying to save people even after 80,000 years of failure. That's not the action of someone who's given up. A week before the projected arrival of the cleanser fleet, the retrofit was complete. 10,000 ships armed with weapons that shouldn't exist, crewed by people who were terrified but determined. Admiral Ho called a meeting of all ship captains. They gathered in a massive virtual conference, thousands of faces on screens. I won't lie to you, Ho said. Our odds aren't good. We're facing an enemy that has destroyed countless civilizations, but we have something they don't. We have Kyung, who has been preparing for this fight longer than some of our species have existed, and we have each other. He gestured to Kyung. This man has lived through more than we can imagine. He's seen civilizations fall, but he's also seen courage, sacrifice, and the stubborn refusal to give up that defines sentient life. We're going to show the cleansers what happens when the galaxy stands together. The captains cheered, their fear temporarily pushed aside by determination. Captain Jia approached Kyung after the meeting. I've been reading about Jin, your co-pilot. They were the one who insisted on adding extra weapons to the Pathfinder, even though it violated mission parameters. Kyung nodded. Jin always said, we'll hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Those extra weapons didn't save us, but the philosophy stuck with me. I understand why you're doing this, Jia said. To honor them. To make sure their sacrifice meant something. That's part of it, Kyung admitted. But mostly I'm just tired of being alone. Tired of watching species die. If this is my last stand, I want it to be with people who remind me why life is worth protecting. The day before the battle, Kyung stood on the bridge of the command ship, looking at the fleet assembled around them. 10,000 vessels representing 23 species, all united against a common threat. Day approached him. The quantum network is online. Every ship is linked. When we fire, it'll be as one. And if something goes wrong, Kyung asked, then we improvise. That's what humans do best, right? Kyung smiled. Jin used to say that. We had a whole plan for the first wave mission. It fell apart in the first week. Everything after that was improvisation. Did it work? I'm still here, aren't I? Yuna joined them, looking at her sensors. Energy signatures are getting stronger. They'll be here in less than 24 hours. Then we're out of time, Hana said, stepping onto the bridge. She had been promoted to admiral for this operation. A field promotion that she hadn't wanted but accepted. All ships, this is Admiral Hana. Battle stations. Prepare for combat. Across the fleet, alarms sounded. Crews rushed to their posts. Weapons powered up. The quantum network hummed to life, connecting thousands of minds and machines. Kyung stood at the tactical console, his hands steady despite the fear he felt. 80,000 years of preparation had led to this moment. He thought of Jin, of Dr. Mina, of all his crew members buried in space around that neutron star. Make sure humanity survives, he whispered, repeating Jin's last words.